Hello.
Are we just getting straight into the performance rankings and talking Duff, or do you want to do a little bit on Limerick now that we've got Arthur, Limerick hurling historian?
Oh yeah.
Limerick hurling's most public fan.
No, definitely not that.
Who's that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, you. Don't worry.
never really
Let's
had
not get distracted. What happened? Just tell us what happened.
It's not. It's. What happened? I don't know. It was a strange game. Watching it, and you can only kind of apply your own logic to it. Watching it, it felt like for a long time you were watching a league game. Certainly from Limerick's perspective, there was kind of an inevitability to it. You're like, look, I even predicted it. I was talking before, and there'll be 3 points either way at half time. That'll be it. Come about the 50th minute, kind of pace will pick up. That'll be it. And I know that's not exactly a hot take. It was like they're pretty traditionally what happens. But I just don't think Limerick's work rate ever matched Dublin's. That was kind of it. Even with a man extra.
In a weird way, the man being sent off lulled Limerick into this even bigger sense of complacency. Where it's like,
possibly.
I mean, we don't,
yeah.
This is going to be 50 minutes, as you say, but it's inevitable at that point. Someone will have a 4 or 5 point burst, and then something great will happen. But the sending off was like, we don't even try to do that now. Like, it's just a weird kind of collective. You're workshopping a take?
No, no, it's not. It's a great point. And it's a great point. It does probably dull the senses a bit, doesn't it? But I don't know. It's very hard to make excuses. Like, it's very hard after the fact as well to be like, I didn't say. I was 100% certain Limerick would win. Like, not even a shadow of a doubt. I was planning ahead 2 weeks. Was already wondering about that.
Because normally you travel to games with a fear in the pit of your stomach.
It was so surreal building up to it. It didn't feel like a championship game. Wasn't as invested in it. Sat there.
There were more Limerick fans than there were Dublin fans at the start of the game anyway.
For sure, 100%. It just was a weird old vibe to it, and they kind of got caught. But like, it's very hard. Like, at the same time, you're thinking afterwards, like, is Niall O'Callaghan a genius? Like, is this guy the next guy?
All available evidence suggests.
It's unbelievable what they did. They were unbelievable. They were so hungry for it. They were just non-stop, and they racked up, was it 30 they finished in the end in total?
But there was also a competency about everything they did that rising teams, particularly in hurling, don't have. Like, all of the things that you're supposed to do happened. When they got free, far from goal, they would have a shot, and you're like, that's a bit stupid because it's a low percentage shot, but it was like straight over the black spot every time.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. There's a skill level here that they've reached, which you're not supposed to be able to get to really quickly. So
I know it's silly, but even they got a lot of scores at the right time, which I know sounds kind of mad because it's like, what difference does it make? But it was the vibe just kept building and building in there because they just kept getting these shots over when it was like, even in quick little bursts where you really kind of, good God, what's happening? Bang, bang, bang. And it's very hard to know. It's very interesting when you look back at 2018, and I don't know if Dublin go on and win the All-Ireland, but like the big turning point for that Limerick team was in the Bet Kilkenny in an All-Ireland quarter-final. And then, of course, Limerick went on to play Cork in the semi-final, which Dublin will now do, with Cork Munster champions.
Cork already anointing themselves kings as well. It's exactly what they needed. They're already odds on to win.
Yeah. Well, like they should be. Like, it's wide open for them now. It'd be a disaster if they didn't for them.
This is an amazing experience Saturday watching this game in McGrath's pub near Croke Park before the Cork match, and it was filled with Dublin fans, filled with them, right, during this Dublin-Limerick game, and it was amazing, right, because like Limerick were ahead by the 51st minute. They went 19 points to 18 ahead, and then John Helton scores the goal.
Yeah.
So and it's quickly followed then by Cian O'Sullivan. I think that they're the 2 scores in a row in the game. The change in atmosphere as soon as the second goal went in, and it was there were no words spoken, but everyone's body language was, this means something now.
And now you're going to believe us.
You could actually feel everyone turning to the closest TV to them
and now
in the pub.
Believe us.
But Limerick did level it up again, didn't they?
They did.
I think they did. They leveled it back up. And if the Galan shot isn't saved,
so Sean Bennett saves that one on
that
one.
was unbelievable.
Yeah, and at that moment as well, like the pub is packed, as I say. It's very loud, but very, very loud. That one-on-one, very, very briefly went quiet. Was Galan struck. Everyone was expecting the net to bulge.
Yeah.
But there were there were a load of Dublin fans there who were like, clearly hurling was down the pecking order for them. And then suddenly, like, by the 65th minute, every single person in that place was going mental.
The Saturday afternoon on the 5th of July.
It's 5 p.m. throw in Cork, Dublin.
So that's obviously a good opportunity for Cork people to get up and down. It's
On
easy
Saturday week.
to get up and down. You can go home afterwards, no problem. There'll be late trains, I presume. But will the Dubs get a big crowd? Will they fill Hill 16 or will Cork fill Hill 16 for that?
Hard to know.
What kind of crowd do we expect?
I'd still back
40,
Cork.
45? All the Cork people show up and it's like 80,000 because we're going to win the All-Ireland.
But like, there's going to be a Cork thing. It'll be like, there's nothing better than going to a semi-final. You're almost certain you're going to win. And I'm not saying that as if that'll happen, but I'm just saying
That's what they think.
Cork fans will be 100% certain they've won that. And don't listen to anything else now when it comes on.
Listen,
no,
listen.
look, it's not. No,
Like
not a whole.
Limerick were 2 points up and Dublin went down to 14. You know, like you can't write Dublin off completely. But this could be their loud footballers thing. You know, this could be their moment.
I will see. I would disagree with that because there wasn't enough people there. Like it was.
I mean the players themselves. Like I'm sure a load of Dubs will actually show up to it now because like they were able to show up to this hurling game, but they were watching and then they were waiting for the football. And then the atmosphere on the way to the football was amazing because both sets of support there were so jovial. As the green came against us, everyone in blue and red was laughing. It was incredible.
As you headed in, all the Cork fans were.
Everybody,
doing the
Cork
Pat
fans
Ryan.
were actually more
What's
hyper.
the song you sing? Fuck off home. Was that it? Is that what you were singing?
I wasn't singing that, but people were singing that,
Were they?
But they,
Were they?
No, the video you're referring to.
No,
it was no.
None of that.
Very respectful. Very
not
respectful
to
at
their face,
Saturday.
only behind
Very
the back.
respectful.
That it?
It's an early bath for you, Limerick.
Yes,
is what we said.
All right, off the ball breakfast is with UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate, or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action. It is time for the performance rankings.
The good?
Is it acceptable to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
The bad?
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
And the amber. Off the ball. Performance rankings.
Oh, Duffer. Duffer. What have you done? What have you done, Duffer? Oh, from the jaws of victory, defeat is snatched. Linfield are like, oh no, this is not what we wanted. We've seen what the League of Ireland versus the Irish League looks like, and it was a pasting last year for the best team by a mile. And then this year, the best team by a mile is Linfield, and Shells should still have enough. And then they'd be in the next stage of the Champions League, and then after they lose there, they get into the Europa League, and then after they lose there, they'll get one game to get into the Conference League, and it would be an incredible roller coaster, long hot summer of joy for Shells and their fans. And so the league is not great, but you'd be like, season 1 reach FA Cup final, season 2 FA Cup final, season 2 qualify for Europe, season 3 win the league, season 4 go on a mad European adventure, and everybody's like, that's continued progress.
Duff only deals in incremental improvements. Can't go backwards.
That wasn't backwards though. That wouldn't be backwards.
He cannot stand the fact that they're defending the league title and they're 6th in the league. Even though they're in touching distance of second, but they're so far off first.
He just needs a wise old somebody, a sage in his life that he just vents at and releases the pressure, and then he goes back and goes, it's fine, I've had my say. But let that maybe not be the media next time where you're, talking about, because I can sleep for 3 hours in the afternoon and they can't, and I'm better than them because, and is it why always me?
What's the show?
Why always me shirt?
What's the show and tell balance advised in poker? Because Duffer goes all in on both. There's no ambiguity about how he feels ever. Do you know this time last week? It wasn't even. It was actually later. It was on Monday night. He was saying the only friends he has in football is people at Shelbourne. They're the only people he cares for. The players and the coaches. No friends in football otherwise. 6 days later, he says, "You're not my friends anymore. I don't like you no more."
It's an interesting decision.
He's the envy of
but if you think about it,
working world. But he just walked away when he didn't like it anymore.
When you think about it, even though it's like disturbed by the league win and all the jubilation around that, it's still been, don't know exactly when you go back to, but it's been a pretty dispiriting 12 months football wise. Like, I'd love to go back and actually check what their ratio is of games won to lost in that time, because like obviously at the end of last season, obviously that they have a terrible fall off and it's just a kind of a slow bike race to the finish. So it's been a very difficult, I'd say, 12 months all in, just week to week.
The stress level.
Yeah, like it's not really. They had such an incredible start to last season that gave them that kind of a platform on which to win the league. But it must be incredibly difficult week to week when you're kind of not delivering more often than not. And it's so odd because they do win the league in between, so that obviously saves things a bit. But I'd say when it started off this year kind of relatively poorly, and not even relatively poorly, it's just the fact when you see that, it's like, Shamrock Rovers are now making the most of all their assets again, so it's like, it's a bit of a stacked league. You can't really, like, it'd be preposterous for Shelbourne to win the league. It's preposterous for anyone else to win the league with that set up against them. So it's like, I can imagine that's quite frustrating.
How long was he thinking about this, because like I say, a week ago he said, these are the people I trust tonight, these are the people I love. It can't just be because of Friday night. Ironically, against Derry City, the team that they beat 1-0 to win the league, they lose 1-0 through actually an unbelievable goal. And I had it noted on Friday night that we should mention this Monday morning anyway. Michael Duffy's finish for Derry against
it was good. Yeah.
Brilliant. Curled it into the top corner. Needed a great goal to win the game, kind of type of thing. But to that point, they haven't been playing very good football for an awfully long time. And what we talk about when it comes to Shells is Damien Duff rather than the football first.
Yeah, because
now what's left of Shells.
All right. We have Nathan Murphy and Vinny Perth with us to reflect on, this is a seismic story for Irish football. Vinny, I'll get to you in a second. What more details do we have, Nathan, today, 24 hours on, about how this all played out?
Just that it was very sudden, that the plan was to prepare for tonight's game down in Waterford as normal. Shelbourne are well used to these Friday, Monday double headers. There was obviously quite a lot of conversation, I think, internally amongst the playing group after Friday night, and perhaps a sense that Duff had gone that little bit too far in terms of his criticism of the players. And I'm sure there would have been some expectation that there'd be a continuation of that at training yesterday. And it's clear, even when the rumours first started going around at lunchtime, that an awful lot of people weren't aware that this had happened or that there was any possibility of this happening. But it seems it's done, it's set in stone. I like a lot thought, well, listen, this is a bit rash, it's a bit impetuous, and when he sits down the cold light of day and has conversations with the owners and the people running Shelbourne, that they'll be able to convince him to change his mind, because there's a lot of shock around this. But the main shock is the timing. To do this 24 hours before a game, just over 2 weeks before a Champions League campaign, Shelbourne's first Champions League campaign in 20 years, it feels to go against an awful lot of what Damien Duff has spoken about over the last 3 years, and particularly even the last few weeks when it's been tough, and about everyone having to stick together. Like, Shelbourne are left right now reeling and in a very, very difficult position, just a couple of weeks out from one of the most important games in their modern history, considering what's at stake financially. But listen, shocked by the timing, maybe not surprised because of the recent form, recent comments, and I guess the unique circumstances that Duff is in as a manager in the Premier League, or Premier Division, or was in, shall we say, in the Premier Division.
Yeah, past tense.
Yeah, well, Vinny, very keen to hear your thoughts. We haven't heard you yet, and that was exactly it. Nathan summed it up there. I imagine you were shocked, but I'm asking as well, how surprised were you at the same time?
Funny enough, wasn't shocked, and I don't think loads of people in the league are necessarily, in the inner sort of circles of the league that would sort of hear different things or speak or be around Damien's company in different situations. So I wasn't overly shocked in terms of, you could see the hurt. You could see maybe, and I don't want to be disrespectful to him, but maybe some of his actions, I don't think, he's always been quite brash. Nathan will know that more than anybody interviewing him, but he's always been, when I say brash, I mean not afraid to say what he's feeling, but he may have crossed the line once or twice in the last month with a couple of things that have ramifications in terms of his playing squad, in terms of his relationships with other people, and he's obviously found that really difficult to deal with. And Nathan gives me a bit of stick about this at times on the pod, but I think it just shows the importance of the right people around you. And I don't mean necessarily Joey O'Brien as assistant manager. I just mean when you're so big like Damien is in terms of the stature and the character in our league, did he have enough people around him? You wonder, just to grab a hold of him and say, just shut up for a couple of weeks, put your head, send other people out to do the interviews for a week or two. And that's sort of what I've been hearing over the last week or two. People who know him really well saying, he just needs to come away for a couple of days and let other people take the heat.
Yeah, exactly. If there was an option somehow to have a breather rather than leave, I'm sure he would have taken it, or would he? Because it is surprising. Like, he did point out on Friday night, lads, that they've only won 2 in a row the first 2 games of the season, so he's been very unhappy with their consistency or lack of. But it was only a week ago that they beat Pats away 1-0, and it was that night as well, Vinny, where he was talking about how much he loves his players and his staff there, and they're his only friends in football. And then 6 days later, he kind of walks out on them, and it's hard to believe it's just because of that Derry City result on Friday gone. But at the same time, he's saying things like that last Monday, but for you, it's not a surprise. So this is all a bit of a conundrum.
It is, yeah, and it is. But then trying to understand Damien, I've spoken before on the show about him, is not easy. He's a complex character. Lucky enough to spend couple of years in a sort of presence doing our pro license together, and he's a complex character. He overthinks stuff a little bit, but that's what's made him special. That's what's made him what he is. He's dragged average players and made them top class players. He's made them champions, and that's what makes him brilliant. But some will say there's a shelf life of managing that way, constantly at people, constantly putting them under pressure, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure. The comments on Friday were a little bit over the line, and there's a long way back when you upset players like that. And some will say, well, players need to get over it. But you are managing 20, 25 people on a daily basis, and the pressure that came with that is ultimately a lot to take. And there's the other side of it is that, and I've spoken to Nathan, and we spoke about this on the pod a little bit, and have tried to involve this year, and it hasn't worked on the pitch. And I presume he's taken that personally as well in terms of the results. So there's a huge amount going on and all of that stuff, and ultimately we don't know exactly the discussions that happened after Friday night's performance, but there seems to be a lot went on after Friday.
There is probably, as much as there's a shelf life to Duff's managerial style and how he's able to motivate players, there's probably a shelf life to how long those players can be motivated for as well. There's a reason that a lot of those players hadn't achieved that level consistently over their career. And maybe the second they took the foot off the gas, once the league title was settled, or even before that, when suddenly they were starting to get a few pats on the back, that Duff has been fighting against that and railing against that for, as Arthur said just before, going on a year. I had a quick look there. I think it was about 10 wins in 31 league games since the beginning of July of last year. So it does seem he's just really struggled to keep the connection with the dressing room, and he was never going to just take a break and take a holiday, and he obviously was not happy with even people taking a mid-season break, but I think we all felt maybe he needed it as much as anybody, because it was relentless. Even just look at those last 10 days, lads. Look at those last 10 days of what happened after the game against Shamrock Rovers, and the continuation of the back and forth with Stephen Bradley, and obviously caught on camera, and you have no class and all of that, to 3 days later, he's bowing down in front of the Shell supporters after they get a win. And then the criticism on Friday night, and there was 3 or 4 separate interviews that he doubled down in each of them in terms of what he looked at as a lack of professionalism. I really went to town at his players. And that's just in the space of 10 days. There was more storylines in that than there was for years in the league. And if you're in a dressing room listening to that, and he's probably gone as far as he can go, maybe it just comes to a natural end. But it's just the timing couldn't be worse.
Yeah, and I think it's important, if you don't mind, just real quickly, to almost defend the players and to say to you that he came, to make this point, that he came away from tactically what he was doing last year, what made them great, Nathan. And it's not that the players had necessarily given up on him, it's and his intensity. Tactically, they came away from what made them big champions last year. I think it's important to point that out to the defender, the players. I mean, the way they played last year is not completely different, but it's certainly different than what they did this year. Obviously, it's had a lot of injuries as well as other managers. But I think it's important to defend the players a little bit. It's not that they didn't reach Damien's standards every single day. It's also that stuff changed the way he played with his team. And ultimately, there's been ramifications for that.
But those ramifications, it seems, from the outside, are too severe. That actually, to your point, if there had been somebody around him who was older and wiser and had been through some of this stuff before, might have been able to say, these are growing pains, and this season, because you're trying to evolve your style into something that will hopefully go toe for toe with Rovers over the next couple of seasons, there's going to be difficulties with that, and you need to decide what you're going to do in Europe and plot your way through it. And this is you becoming a great manager, being able to back things up. Now there are questions about what Damien's future in the game are going to be, because how do you come back from this? Like, he's going to have to take it a long time away and come back and convince everybody that he's learned the lessons of what's just happened.
There's two answers to that. First one is, I think it's a great lesson for. I remember when I was a young coach, I'd listen to Off the Ball quite a lot, and you think of people like just listening to the managers come on, and always look for little nuggets, and there's a great nugget in this. You think Stuart Lancaster talking to yourself and stuff like that. I know I would have picked up a lot at that time. The great nugget in this is, and again, it's not about Joey O'Brien. It's about having somebody that's, remember, Damien is so big, somebody to throw a few F-bombs at you on Friday night after the game and go, before you go to the press, just think about this, send someone else out, take the night off, just get out of the ground, go away, and we'll talk about it later. And someone has to almost be a stronger character than Damien to do that, or with nothing to lose. So I think that's a really important lesson for a lot of people in management. It's something I took from over the weekend. But then the second side of it is, I get the point of that. I've already seen some articles this morning where they're quite critical of Damien in terms of his future. But if I'm owning the club in League of Ireland in the next 12, 18 months, Damien Duff is right on top of my list. Now, the problem with that is what he said, and how much he's a Shelbourne man is a problem, but he's right on top of my list with almost every club.
Well,
do you like or not?
But Vinny, that's all well and good for clubs wanting him, but like you say already, he's on record saying several times that Shells are his only love. He's not going to manage anyone else in the League of Ireland. He doesn't want to manage abroad. He said in the past he didn't want the Ireland job. It's just Shells, right? So he's backed himself into this corner. But I guess the question I have is, like, you run about lessons being learned there. Does he even want to learn lessons? Does he want to change the way he is? Like, one of the quotes he had on Friday night was particularly striking, I thought, was, you can grab every player down here now and ask the same question. Is it Duffer that drives everything? As in referring to himself in the third person, Duffer. It is, and it's getting tiring, but most importantly, it gets frustrating. I mean, was he too open in terms of how much he enjoyed the job and too emotionally attached to it and taking everything personally, so that this actually isn't that much of a shock considering how he's been conducting himself to this point?
I don't know. Look, Nathan interviews, and he can answer that probably better than me. Can I just give you one example? Johnny Sexton only released a book recently where he said he wouldn't coach, etc., etc. He's away currently with the Lions. Life is short. We move on very quickly.
Yeah, I think, listen, we're right in the heart of it now, but football managers are full of contradictions and hypocrisies, and I think Duff would find it very easy after a break to go in somewhere else and say the exact same things about somebody else and throw himself into a job, because that's what he's. I think if Duff takes a job, it's going to be a job he feels that he can do a similar job to Shelbourne at. He's going to go in and want that control of the playing squad. He's going to want to put his heart and soul into it. He's going to want that thing that he was so proud of, I think, with Shells, that, kept him awake late at night and it got him up early in the morning. We're talking about a man who is in a very unique circumstance in that, I won't say he was bigger than the club, but the club certainly needed him more than he needed that job. And he got the sense that in his early 40s, probably with more money than you could ever imagine, he needed something to get him out of bed in the morning, something that he could be obsessed with and allowed to be obsessed with. And that's what Shells gave him. And give him a break, and I suspect all of the positives of what he's taken from the Shells job could be fresh in his mind, and he'd be looking at what that next challenge is. Now, there's not many challenges in Ireland aside from one of Shelbourne's direct rivals. So if a Bohemians job comes up again, or if eventually the Shamrock Rovers job, where obviously there's a long-term connection, his name would certainly be in the mix, and he will unquestionably be the favourite to take over when Stephen Bradley eventually leaves Shamrock Rovers. But, you going to have to swallow some pride if he wants to do that. Does it have an impact on the Ireland job potentially? I'd imagine there's quite a few in the FAI who wouldn't need a second excuse to deny Duff the chance of managing Ireland whenever that opportunity comes up. And maybe again you can point to this of, well, you left the Ireland job in fairly sudden circumstances, you left the Shelbourne job in fairly sudden circumstances, and we don't need that risk here with the biggest job in the country. But I think he believed everything he said about Shelbourne and his love for Shelbourne. I think that idea that he would die for the club and he would die for his players, I think he truly did believe that. But that's management, and you gotta believe it, and you gotta get your players to believe it. And he's done it better than anybody over the last couple of years with the way he's helped Shelbourne rise. But I don't think that means he couldn't do it somewhere else.
If a side, Nathan, offers him a job that doesn't necessarily need Duff, they're giving him the opportunity, and they're paying him very well, so that's probably going to be abroad. Do you imagine that we're going to see the same Damien Duff?
I think that's Damien Duff, isn't it? I never knew this Damien Duff at all until he came into the Shelbourne job, and the few dealings you would have had him as a player, you never got the sense that this character was going to be there. And I would be surprised if he went over and was the manager of Derby County just because the money was good. I think, and again, maybe I'm contradicting myself in that it's only a month or so ago that I was over in Talca Park and he was giving a press conference, and his son Woody was in the room, and he's pointing at Woody as like, this is why I'm here. The kids are here, the family is here. I don't want to be anywhere else. And again, a unique part of this was that it didn't feel as though it was a stepping stone. He wasn't last November going, all right, this is my CV filled out. You have that CV and you have his reputation as a player. And again, he's going to be able to get a really good job over in England. Like, I think you have to believe him when he says that wasn't the ambition of what he was trying to achieve with Shelbourne. So is he just going to take the next job on offer because he has the management bug? Oh, I don't think so.
Vinny, it sounds like you feel he was just a bit burnt out at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to talk about Damien because he's such a complex character, but it looked that way. He didn't look he didn't look himself, for want of a better word, on the sideline. You can see that with managers have obviously been through that. It's really difficult. There was times he was too quiet on the line, and then there was times he just took things too far a little bit. So yeah, it just looked like a lot of us could see this coming. We could see this coming, and the people that could see it coming most are probably the ones that sort of knew him best. And any discussions I had with people, they sort of felt. And look, results change everything. If they'd won the last 4 games, Damien's still in charge there, but they haven't. And things have gone up and down. So it just felt, yeah. And it goes back to managing players and people. And if you get out of the car every single day going into your workplace and the manager is that intense, or it is difficult to work in that environment. And maybe there was a bit of a disconnect at times with him and the players over the last little while, where when you it's all right to do that, but when you go publicly slaughter players, it's difficult to come back from that.
Vinny, the League of Ireland has seen a significant increase in popularity over the last few years. There's loads of factors to it. Damien Duff is certainly one of them. What's the impact on the league now?
Oh, it's massive. It's a massive blow for the league. We had a league before Damien that was building nicely, but he took it onto a new level. And anyone that doesn't think that's happened is in Cloud Cuckoo land. He's taken us into the sort of the biggest news story. And when you look what's happened over the weekend from a sporting point of view, what you would have had planned for the show, the fact that Damien has left is huge news. It's I've seen most of the papers this morning. It's back page on all of them. It's on front pages of some of them. He's a huge character. It's a huge blow to our league. What he's done for it, it is absolutely massive what he's done for League of Ireland. And anyone that doubts that doesn't understand the world we live in. So it's a hammer blow for the league in many ways. Damien Duff and Champions League football sounds right. It sounds great together. I'm really good that he's not taking Chelsea into the Champions League. I really wanted to see that. I think they've got a massive opportunity, and therefore it's a big blow for Chelsea as a football club. But this is a real blow for us as a league, absolutely.
And do they just give it to Joey O'Brien now to take them through the qualifying, because it's very close? Or do you try and get somebody who has a big character to come in and re-energise the group, go back to basics from what they were doing last season. It's such a tricky scenario for the people who are running the club.
It's a difficult one because it depends on if Joey's more the same. Well, that's not good because it feels like Shells need to try something a little bit different, whether that's going back to the way they played last year. But Joey O'Brien is so highly regarded in the game that it feels like he is the right person to take the club on, but he has to want it. And the amount of Damien has created a huge amount of loyalty with his inner workings of his team. You'd imagine he's been so good to them people that work with him that not every assistant manager likes to stay around when the manager leaves in these circumstances. So the decision you probably feel is maybe Joey's. If he wants it, I think he'll get it. I hope he gets it in many ways because we're hearing a lot of good things about him. So it's an interesting one.
Nathan, what do you think?
Well, I think the way that Duff always spoke about Joey O'Brien, you always got the sense that they were very aligned, that they were both trying to push as hard as they possibly could with the players. And that would obviously give the impression that it will be a continuation of Duff's style. But, I'm sure Vinny knows better than anybody. As an assistant manager, you have to row in behind what your manager is doing, certainly publicly and on the training ground. And maybe Joey O'Brien would have a very different way of going about things if he was the number one. As you say, anyone you talk to around Shelbourne or around Irish football always only has good things to say about Joey O'Brien. And the fact it's come as it has mid-season, I think works in his favour as well. I'm going to head down to Waterford tonight for the game, and I'll be interested to talk to Shelbourne supporters as they have time to digest this as to what their feeling is. Because again, 2 weeks out from a Champions League game that could have a massive bearing on the long-term future of the club in terms of the financial benefits if they were to win that and give themselves a real opportunity to qualify for the group stage of what would ultimately end up in the group stage of the Conference League, as to how unsettling this might be. But maybe the form was so poor anyways in recent weeks that this might spark something in them over the next fortnight. If it's not Joey O'Brien, the name that's obviously going to be thrown around is Kevin Doherty. With what he's done at Shelbourne, with his connection, or with what he's done at Drogheda and his connection with Shelbourne, and the fact that I'm sure he's not in the best frame of mind around things either at the moment. But you'd have to say it feels like it's going to be Joey O'Brien. But Joey is his own man as well. It may well feel that having been so strongly linked with Duff, that get through these couple of games and then see what the lay of the land is.
Vinny, just one more from me. Was Damien Duff right to leave right now if he felt it was the right choice for him? And what I mean by that is, should he have been more responsible and stayed until the Champions League rounds were done because of the money on the line and how much of an impact he has in Shells?
That's difficult. Like, I feel like the answer to that is Damien has to look after himself. It's such an incredibly difficult job.
Yeah.
Management, the scrutiny that comes with it. People like Damien and Stephen Kenny throws this out as well. They don't read stuff, they don't see stuff. They see everything, they hear everything. It's incredible, noisy world we live in now. There's a pressure with that. He felt like he lost the battle with Bradley that time. That wouldn't have hurt him. I know it's a nothing argument, but it felt like he lost that one. He hasn't had the moral high ground in a lot of things over the last while. So maybe it is the right time for him to step away. He's got to look after himself and his own sort of personal space. But it goes back to the point, it's a huge, huge blow for Shelbourne because we've mentioned it before, but real quickly, like the prize money at stake by beating Linfield is massive. The opportunity to be a Conference League side is huge for an Irish team. Last year, obviously Shamrock Rovers got there with a quality squad, but the champions of Northern Ireland and Wales both got conference football with a result of millions and millions in the bank, and that sets Shells up for the next 4 or 5 years as a result of it. So the next month is huge for that football club, and him not being there is a hammer blow.
And sorry, one last point of this, which I haven't seen spoken about. The fact that Drogheda aren't in Europe means that there's not a third team adding to the league's coefficient, which means that there's a possibility we fall further behind, or at least the opportunity for us to jump forward and get more teams into Europe and further on in the competitions. Like, that's actually a complicating factor in all this, that these games now matter not just for Shells, but for the league as well.
Yeah, but I think the work Shamrock Rovers has done over the last few years will mitigate that a little bit. I think there's an outside chance now because of the draw. Rovers may get another conference this year. It will definitely be harder because they're not on the Champions route. But yeah, it's just not good. It's not good. The timing is not good from a Shelbourne point of view, and there will be some fans hurt as a result of that. But he's got to look after himself. As I said, there's Duffer. Like, it's one of the biggest games of the year as Bows and Rovers tonight, and the story is Damien Duff. He's done it again. Fair play to him.
Look after himself is an interesting line, I think, as well, because I wonder when he woke up on Saturday morning, and he used to sort of make a joke of this over the last year, of his wife would be like, what have you said this time, when they'd pick up the papers on a Saturday. And he knew, as you say, he was so aware of how his words were being presented and what he was saying and the impact it had. But the last few weeks has definitely felt different, and the fallout with Bradley had certainly gotten nastier and more personal, I think, than anybody expected. And remember, it was just a general back and forth. And look, Duff obviously took massive offence to Bradley saying that Damien can get a little bit emotional at times. But I was there in Tala the night when Duff walked straight down the tunnel, and I was actually sitting right behind his dugout. And it was just a normal Damien Duff experience. He was at his players. He was at the fourth official, the referee, as he and all the other managers are. And it didn't feel like there was much niggle or anything in the game, and certainly not enough for him to walk straight down the tunnel. So it was clearly because of the comments beforehand. But I know people around were very surprised by his decision not to shake hands that night. They mightn't feel like anything, but again, it's just continued from there, and the obviously being caught on camera and the roaring of the no class. And then I do wonder if he woke up on Friday morning or on Saturday morning and was reading his own comments back and thought, okay,
yeah, sorry,
I've gone
real
too
quickly,
far.
Can I just throw in before I understand it's a big weekend sport-wise, but just on Damien, like I obviously have had a private conversation with Damien in the last number of weeks, and the impression people have is he's cold, he's this, he's that. He felt it was important that the two of us had a private conversation, but something went on between the two of us. Between that and stuff, he helped me with a pro license. He's a great fellow, like, but he has this persona where it's all about Shelbourne and fighting for his team. I'm okay with that, but be under no illusions, there's a lot of good. Like, he's a really great fella, and what you see is not necessarily what you get with Damien. He fought for Shelbourne, fought tooth and nail, won them the league title, dragged them over the line, and I understand there's a bit of hurt with him leaving, and he's upset a lot of people in other clubs, but he's ultimately a great person, and I think he's a big blow to our league.
Vinny, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Nathan, enjoy the trip to Waterford tonight, and obviously we will wait to see what comes out of that. Right, so Shells in the red.
Shells, Duff in the red. Imagine if he had left after they won the league. Would it be a bit different now? He'd be like, he did the ultimate fair play and walked away.
The league in the red.
League in the red, everything in the red. I wonder, would he ever manage again? That's another possibility that he doesn't do that. Seismic news, that's the way to start with that. So that's absolutely in the red, the reddest of the red. But the greenest of the green, Dublin hurlers, for sure.
Woo.
Incredible. We touched on it
as
there.
As green as Limerick's jersey. The big winners from this, of course, are the Kilkenny-Cody era, because now it is inarguable that they are the greatest team of all time, because they came back from being smacked around in the All-Ireland final and put two back-to-back together. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Limerick hurling historians.
I thought they'd be angry. I thought they'd be angry after the penalties. I thought we'd see the fiercest version of Limerick, the one that embarrassed Cork on the 18th of May. I thought it was going to be something like that. And I was just waiting for them to get going. Everyone was waiting for them to get going. And the thing is, they weren't totally out of it, obviously, ever. Like, they were always neck and neck with Dublin. But I just felt they were going to, even 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go, still thought they were going to get over the line.
Yeah, Dublin kept giving them chances. Christy O'Connor was pointing out that, like, until basically the very last second, the bookies still had Limerick favourites. I'd say maybe when they're standing over the last free, I've just
Burns.
Yeah.
Jeremy Burns. And before that, Gerard Hegarty had a shot cleared as well. So they had 2 shots a goal in injury time.
It's interesting though. Like, it's easy to be wise after the fact, but like I was thinking about it. It's like they'd played 12 games this year, 6 league, 6 championship. How many do you think they won?
5.
4.
Right.
So they've won 4 games from 12 this year.
Somebody pointed out they scored 112 against Wexford.
Yeah, the Wexford game, they just kind of... I think there's plenty of times their league form has been pretty unspectacular, and they tend to peak at around All-Ireland semi-final, final time. And it's kind of, there's all sorts of stuff you can read into it. I mean, it's always striking how much Kylie talked about, like, almost that 4-week gap was seen as a bigger prize than the Munster Championship in recent years.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like, but like, there's no, that's not an excuse. I don't think it, I'm fascinated. I'd love to get someone on to talk about this. I'm fascinated by the way that how teams plan out their whole year, and even the scheduling of people's kind of the conditioning and what time of the year, that sort of periodisation when you're trying to peak. Because what it looked like yesterday, and I don't think it was a tiredness thing, because Dublin only played a week earlier, but what it looked like earlier was that Dublin it was like a team that had eyeball in the league and is going to go for it against a team that couldn't care less about the league. And it's kind of like only then when you realise, oh Jesus, these 2 goals go in, it's like, balls, we really have to up to this now. And they just didn't have that gear to go up to, which is very strange, because I don't know, because they've been, like, the game against Cork, the first one, it wasn't even that Cork were poor, it was their...
the first half of Limerick, there was
efficiency.
The second half of that first half was like, that was peak Limerick. I mean, what was most impressive All-Ireland winning year under Kylie, whatever that was, that's what they were like against Cork. And it wasn't like this performance was necessarily coming. Like, you pointed out, they weren't at their best for a lot of this year, and that's true. But the Munster final, they didn't play great, but they played well.
But they had 3 or 4 chances to win it. And if they win it, it's a completely different story.
So it's not like, this isn't a Damien Duff thing. This isn't like there were signs. This was crazy what happened on Saturday.
The last thing I'll say about it is that there's been a load of games like that, the Cork game, the second Cork game over the year, where it's like, things go slightly different and Clare win the Munster Championship, or and it's kind of like it's a different route.
Yeah,
it's just, it hasn't gone their way this year. I don't think it's a disaster, but at the same time you're kind of like,
it's not the end of the year, is it?
It's hard to know. I was looking at it. There's going to be about 10 or 11 of the guys who started the last day, and even more. It's going to look up to 12 are going to be 30 or over, near 30 or over, like 29, 30 plus. So that's not what it used to be. I mean, there's guys can go on longer. I don't think you're going to see wholesale changes. But
does Kylie stick around? What did he?
That's more interesting. I don't know. Yeah. He's going to have a very busy year. I know it seems silly to say so, but he's going to have a very busy year when the Ryder Cup comes to a dare, obviously. He is working in whatever capacity he's working in on that. I don't know what he does. I don't know what happens next. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what Connacht's plan is. I don't know if other teams have just gotten wise to their kind of thing, and the point of difference is gone.
All right, Dublin hurlers in the green, Limerick hurlers in the red. Galway footballers also in the green. They win by 2 points against Down, 226 to 321. Hell of a match.
Should they be in orange here, given that there's injuries to
Galway?
Just because Shane Walsh might be injured? If Shane Walsh doesn't play again...
if there's a Shane Walsh injury option, definitely. But no, this is
Shane Walsh doesn't play yesterday, they don't get through.
It was incredible. Walsh, he was fairly quiet, borderline anonymous, and he scored his goal, and that was the second touch of the ball. He scored 1-5 before he went down with the shoulder injury in the first half, got up, took the free, scored. Very quiet in the second half, injured again, scored, taken off. It is a huge worry. He's player of the year. Potentially.
Loads of teams are getting slaughtered for being easy to score against, but it turns out it might just be easy to score under the new rules, because like Down created loads of chances and looked very good.
Down missed loads of chances too.
So is that we don't care? I don't know. It doesn't matter because Galway can score heavily. I'm just asking here. I think Galway should definitely be. You just want to be alive to be in the draw.
It's funny you say it, because Donegal Loud, I was expecting high scoring again, and it was a disappointing first half, and it was a throwback to the old rules, because now there's an expectation in 2025 that Gaelic football will be high scoring. That's how quickly it's all changed.
Unless it's the Tailteann Cup semi-final.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
The game was great. Kildare still alive. That's all that you want.
So Kildare are actually, and I'm subject here in performance rankings. They are into Tailteann Cup final. Happy? Delighted? Thrilled?
I mean, I'm sure they'll be fairly devastated with the quality of their performance, but they're alive, which is all that matters, because there's been times in recent Kildare history where they missed goal chances in the first half, and it's like, oof, they were psychologically brittle, but they came through it, and neither side was really able to show off their best. There was torrential downpours at various stages in the first and second half, which meant that it was incredibly slippy, and look, stay alive. Through to play Limerick, who at one stage I thought were getting hammered out the gate by Wicklow, and then there's a a catastrophic goalkeeping error gives Limerick the opportunity to get back in the game, and they just, again, it shows you that these teams are very evenly matched. So,
And finally, the Lions in the red. The first time they've lost a tour match, first out since 1971.
I was totally up for Argentina. They were getting frowned upon by the people around me when I was celebrating Argentina scores. Felipe Contepomi is great.
Home was
What? No, I was at the game.
You were cheering at the game.
Come on, it's like, come on, it's like, and then I bumped into somebody I hadn't seen in 20 years and said, "Oh, we really want to win." And like, "Oh, we don't. It doesn't matter. It's actually better. It's better for rugby if Argentina, who are a team who play week in, week out together, and I know they were missing those of their best players, if they beat this scratch team who've literally been on the piss in Portugal, it's much better for the game."
I do get you.
And actually, Argentina, it would be much better if the tour was to Argentina now.
They badly wanted to win against
Australia.
Lions. I talked about Felipe Contepomi 20 years ago as 25 all, and that hurt. They wanted to win that game in Cardiff.
I love Felipe. He's class.
The quality of their 3 tries.
Absolutely sensational, and they deserved it. And like, look, the Lions obviously have this incredible pick, and their strength and depth is insane. And
2 disallowed tries as well.
well, they weren't disallowed. They were like, they butchered. That's disallowed suggests that there was some kind of error on it. Like, you know,
They got over
when
the
you
line.
throw
They got over the line. They made a
line,
mistake, as in they could have won the game in another day. But Argentina were unbelievable.
maybe
Well warranted.
I'm delighted for them. So
Lions.
I put rugby as a
Lions in their
Do you have your Lions
97.
gear on?
I did not have my Lions gear, but I was the only one who didn't.
It would have cost you €97
For the Howden.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I'm
For
just
the jersey.
looking here. Yeah.
10 million quid apparently they're spending on the shirt.
Get a
badge.
bag.
If you got a player's test jersey, it's €130.
Well, I'd say everybody was wearing. I've not been at a sports event which was more dominated by people wearing the brand new
The
kit.
brand new one as well,
Yeah.
not just Lions, but if you walked around Friday morning around Dublin City Centre,
I saw
there were
one
Lions
NTL, I
jerseys
saw one
everywhere.
Munster Toyota jersey there, and the rest of it was like brand
Howden.
new. It was like the sea
Howden.
of red. So-
Interesting, it's cheaper in long sleeve, €89.
is it?
Yeah,
Is that you can't show the guns off?
I have
They
it
don't
here.
wear a long sleeve anymore. You don't see it so much.
You don't see it.
Ah.
Gavin Henson days are gone.
It's kind of the same way as football.
But what do the Lions fans think? There's
Lions fan.
there are Lions fans. People love
Do you think
I
there's
love
any-
it.
do you think there's
I
any-
love it.
Do you think
I
there's
think
any
it's great.
rugby fan who follow the Lions first and just sit out for every?
Like the players.
just
The highest honour is the highest level of the game. The test arena.
because we should get into this because Colin Sheridan's written a piece there saying it's absolutely ridiculous. It's a ridiculous concept. What are you doing? But I actually disagree. I think that
Class concept.
it's okay. It is totally mad. Yes, it doesn't make any sense. But like, must everything be able to be reflected on an Excel sheet, and at the end of it, you go, yes, the ledger is balanced. Let's move on. No.
That's your
It
performance.
was a money making. Go on.
There'll be time for the Lions.
That's your performance ranking.
Performance rankings.